Now we're meeting in person on Zoom by 2022 standards. Nice to meet you, bro.
Nice to meet you, brother. And I saw that tattoo on your arm, man. Like, I got a couple of them on myself.
You're getting tatted now.
A little bit, just trying to delve a little bit. The longer you wait to get tattoos, the better they become. Because if you have enough money to pay, you can get a much better tattoo.
Dude, whenever you see a bad tattoo on an athlete, it's because they got the tattoo too early. That's the whole thing.
Exactly. They got the initials on the bicep or the name on the back or something. Maybe like a little bull right here. They got that one in high school.
Or Trent Brown's 2 naked women and a guy in a football helmet with 77 on his pec, which it's okay. Trent's made fun of it. We talked about it on this show. And then what makes matters worse for guys, like in the locker room where you're like, man, that's a bad tattoo, is a lot of guys got them before they hit their growth spurts.
Oh, now they're all stretched out. We got little stretch marks on them a little bit.
Yes, dude.
I know this is not what we're supposed to be talking about.
No, this is what this show's about, dude. So you got a sleeve now. You have half a sleeve or the full sleeve?
So I've got the whole inside sleeve of my left arm. And then I'm going to get the right side finished this summer. But my entire left leg is tattooed up. I did that in 2 sessions. It took 9 to 10 hours, both sessions.
You're a marathon guy, huh?
I just listen, if I'm going to be in pain, I might as well go ahead and be in pain one time.
Yeah.
Sit there, get it done with. I'm not trying to come back for 7 sessions, man.
Yep. They say the leg's painful, though.
Yes, the leg is painful. I will say this, the lower leg, calf, all that, not a problem. Upper leg, inside area, and the hamstring. The hamstring feels like they're carving off flesh from your body. But the inside is just, it's too close to some other areas. Yeah. So you get a little nervous.
All right, so do this. Well, you're a quarterback, so you might not answer this question the same as me, but like a 9-hour session on a leg sleeve or a weekend training camp at Baylor.
Oh, my goodness.
Which one? What would you rather sit through?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I love football, so I'd rather do the football.
Yeah, because the quarterback. Quarterback. Man, we used to be getting hydrated, stretch it out, just basically getting wheeled out there, the linemen. And you guys would be out there in red jerseys just looking spry.
Oh, come on now. 118 degrees out there. Yeah. And when you're a mobile guy, practice is a lot harder when you're a mobile guy than it is when you just stand in the pocket and throw the football.
That's a really good point, dude. I want to let's start there because we're talking about mobile guys. I told you I want to talk to you about Lamar a little bit, man. First off, I want to say this. I was just telling the guys, I didn't know much about you when you were young, other than that you were great at football. And I think a lot of times with college football legends who have success in the league, also I would assume big ego and that sort of thing. And you were dealt some adversity, and through your career, I just want to say this, I feel the same way about Cam. Cam was always a superstar, and then at the end of his career, he had to deal with a lot of adversity, and he handled that like an absolute champ. And you handled your role in Baltimore and even the injury in Cleveland. I thought you were real classy about everything. So number one, I respected you the most when you were doing the least on the field, honestly, because you were a vet to Lamar. And I think that's a really cool thing and how it comes full circle. So what's that relationship like now? What was it like on the field? And he's an MVP, and I think it's unfair to ask this question almost, but what would take him to the next level?
Yeah, Chris, I appreciate you saying all that. And, even going back to my last year in Washington in 2015, when I didn't play a snap, I still had to be there for Kirk Cousins and Colt McCoy. And I took pride in being a pro in those situations. As you know, in life, everything's not going to go the way that you want it to. So when I had an opportunity to sign with Baltimore, I absolutely knew the chances of me making that team were slim to none. Right. They had actually brought me in before they drafted Lamar. And when they drafted Lamar, you can honestly say the power of Twitter saved my job. Because as soon as they drafted Lamar, I sent out a tweet and I said, I can't wait to get to work with this young guy and be there for him. And my quarterback coach called me 10 minutes later and he said, hey, man, really appreciate you sending that out. That went a long way with the guys in the building and the ones making the decision. So the way I took that was man, they're about to cut me after they drafted Lamar. I'm golly, I just got here.
I just saved my job on Twitter.
That's saved my job because of a tweet. But the relationship with Lamar was great. What I tell people is his first year was the frustrating year for him because everyone thought he was going to come in. Right. Teams wanted him to play receiver, wanted to play another position. And he was dealing with all of that. But when Joe Flacco got hurt and he had to be thrusted into, to go out and play, I thought he handled it great. And then the following year, I saw him really open up. And that's when he really started asking a ton of questions, getting the feedback. And I felt like I was really being able to be more of a mentor for him in that second year, which I think is the year he went out and won MVP. But our relationship was great. I literally saw the guy do stuff on the field that I've never seen anyone do, and stuff that I'd never seen him do. Like in practice, he would never make this throw. And then in the game, he would just do it. And I'm like, that's just a sign of a guy who just has it. So I think for him, to answer your question about what do you need to do to go take the next step, I think he's got to stay healthy. Obviously, last year he missed like the last 4 games. But when he's protected, man, the dude is lethal from the pocket. He actually carries the Ravens more than any other quarterback in the league carries their team because of the workload they put on top of him.
Exactly.
So as you said, like, the dude won MVP. Right. What more can you do? Yes, he can improve in the pocket, throwing the ball, being more consistent in that regard, throwing to the boundaries. You hear all these talking points all the time on TV.
But they don't hold up. Dude, the talking points hold up when you look at the tape. I mean, like, it sounds like that's the thing. I think for me, it's just the offense in general. Like, what does the offense have to do more than him? I mean, because obviously his productivity is maxed out, but I wonder, because we used to play Greg Roman twice a year in the NFC West, and they were some dogs, and they had a really complex run scheme. And when you pair that with Lamar, it's damn near lethal. But at times, I think about the Miami game, and all quarterbacks have bad games, but the offenses in general have bogged down. And, I don't know if that offense needs to evolve a little bit to fit his skill set, if that makes sense. Do you feel that way?
No. I what you're saying is spot on. Like, the talking points that you hear on TV a lot of times aren't spot on with Lamar, but they have to find something to talk about. And this, like, finding that content on a daily basis when you work at one of these networks can be difficult. So sometimes people fall into just saying stuff the narrative, because it's the easy narrative, the easy thing to say. So, Lamar's not maxed out as far as like his potential, but what the Ravens can do with him and have done with him. I mean, they broke a record that like lasted for 60 years when I was there in Baltimore running the ball. So that when you get a Greg Roman offense, you better buckle your chin strap on that day, because they're going to run the heck out of the football. And when you talk about scheme, I just think they have to use the regular season to figure out who else they can rely on outside of Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews.
Right.
Because when you get to the playoffs, as you know, they're going to try to make you play left-handed.
Yeah.
So is James Prochet a receiver that can step up for you? Is Devin Duvernay a guy that can step up for you? Are you going to lean more on J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards now that they're back from injury, or do you lean on Mike Davis? I hate to say it, like, every team's trying to win and all the time. But I think the Ravens got to go out there and kind of treat it like a Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan situation. Like, throughout the year, Jordan's going to get his 30 points. Yeah. But in the middle of that game, he's going to work on a part of his game that he's maybe not as strong at, so that when he gets to the playoffs, he can rely on that jump shot, that fadeaway. Yeah. So that's how I look at the Ravens. They got to spend the regular season and try to schematically take some stuff off of Lamar, because there's no way for 17 to 21 games he can be Superman every single game. Right. And that's what they have to do.
And that's really tough, too, in their division now. Like, that wouldn't have been as tough in the past, but now all of a sudden you got maybe Deshaun. I'll leave that there. And then you obviously got Joe Burrow right down the way. So it's tough for them to, like, tinker with stuff. But you're right. The preseason isn't enough to try new concepts for them. But I think you said it, like, you can't just rely on Mark Andrews, and like going back a year, your free agency can't yield like, no offense to any of these guys, but Gus Edwards or whatever it was Villanueva, and then, they bring in some other receiver. Like, Bateman's exciting to me. I know he wasn't a free agent, but is he going to be the number one that Lamar needs to take it to the next level? Do they need to bring another receiver in? I mean, it's too late at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I would say from a receiver standpoint, they really like Rashad Bateman. Yeah. He's got size, speed, strength. All the communication, at least with me and them out of their camp, was that this guy, he's a true number one. Okay. He's the guy. Well, that's good. I do think that they have an opportunity there. But as you know, like, he hasn't proven it yet. So we can't, like, stamp him as a true number one yet until he goes out and does it.
No question.
Looking at their roster, I'm with you. They need to bring in a guy. Yeah. Just a veteran I mean, I don't know who maybe it's Julio Jones. I don't know, right? They got to bring in some veteran to kind of help the receiver core, or at least to give the fan base some confidence that they have another guy there who's done it before. Because right now on the roster, they don't have that. Now, I worked extensively with Prochet and Duvernay when they were rookies.
Yeah.
So I know that they're ready to take off.
Yeah.
But schematically, I just look at it as, it's not throwing the ball. It's not, they don't have enough weapons. It's when they call plays.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, guaranteed, it's 3rd and short. They're running the quarterback draw up the middle where the back's coming across, and he's either handing it off, reading the end, or going right down the pipe on the defense as a quarterback. It's the last big run I had when I was in Baltimore, when I ran down the middle of the field for like 30 yards. And I knew it. Like, I'm in the huddle. It's 3rd and 2. I'm like, yep, they're calling that. Every single time. Now, they might be mad at me because I just gave away that secret, but it's not a secret. It's not a secret. Every team knows that when you face the Baltimore Ravens, that's what you're going to get.
Exactly. Greg's been who Greg is now. The offense has changed a little bit, and I agree with you. I think it's hard to ask the question, and I hate even asking it, how does Lamar take the next step? You could ask that about a lot of quarterbacks in the league, short of Tom Brady. But you're always looking to improve your game and fine-tune it. And I'm sure Lamar is, but he's an MVP for a reason, and I think they got to put the pieces around him. I kind of fell into a narrative thing. Well, people felt like I fell into a narrative thing when I talked about Tua because I said he can't throw the deep ball. This isn't a slight. I mean, it is. It's like saying that, J.J. Redick's not a great dunker. Like, what? It doesn't. I'm not trying to kill the kid. I'm just saying he can't throw the deep ball. What do you think we need to see from Tua this year to get him off the hot seat? Because at this point, this is a business. They're always looking to try to replace you. That doesn't mean he's a bad player. It just means that, hey, Tom Brady was retired for a second. They wanted Sean Payton, Tom Brady. They had bigger things in mind. And I think this is the prove it year for him. What does he have to do to prove it?
Yeah, 100%, because I think it is a prove-it year for Tua. But I'll take it a step further. I think that Tua hasn't really been given a true opportunity to prove what he's going to be in the NFL.
Right.
Last year, it just seemed like, he was playing behind the 32nd ranked pass blocking unit. So, no time to throw. Everyone's saying he can't throw the deep ball. But when you go look at the numbers, you can see that he was accurate throwing the ball down the field. They just didn't throw it down the field a lot because he didn't have enough time to do it.
Right.
So for Tua, I just think they don't have to go to the playoffs this year. It would be great for Miami if they went to the playoffs. I think it'd be great for Tua's career to get a lot of people off his back. He just has to show progress. Their offense can't be stalemated, for 2, 3, 4 games in a row with the firepower that they have.
Yeah.
You bring in Tyreek Hill, you bring in Cedric Wilson, you bring in Raheem Mostert, and then the other back they brought in from the Cardinals, Teron Armstead. Like, they just brought in a lot of guys
it's an all-star
to help Tua out. And I just look at Tua, and I've said this on TV before. In college, this, everyone loved Tua because of the deep ball. The guy was historic throwing the deep ball, throwing the ball down the field. Georgia fans still don't want to talk about, 2nd and 26 when he threw the touchdown down the sideline.
Yeah, they shouldn't want to talk about that, dude.
They don't want to talk about that. So I just think Tua has to go out there. He's got to have some 300-yard passing games where he throws for 4 touchdowns and show people that he can not only get the ball to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle in the short game, but he can also hit some of those deep balls. But he's not going to be able to eliminate that narrative that he doesn't have a strong arm, because he doesn't necessarily have one of the strongest arms in the league.
No, and no one's saying he's got a noodle arm. It's just he's not a top 10 deep ball thrower. I mean, that's not really his strength. Now, to your point, in college, that was more of a thing. He was also real good at the quick stuff, the RPO type stuff, and that's why a lot of this stuff's going to be promising. I've called it a yactory down there. I think it's going to be a yactory with all those guys running with the football. But when you look at the deep balls, he has to, one, be confident enough to throw them, because there were times where he could have thrown the ball deep, pushed it a little. Now, the offense sucked. We get that. But then second, I think you pointed to some, is that in college he could throw the deep ball. So what happened? He had that big hip injury. I didn't know that I don't know. I still don't know if he's going to be able to get back to that form. This year is going to tell me a lot more, because they're talking about things like torque and shit. When I hear torque, I think his torque is coming back. Maybe this is the year for him. So I think it's fair to say it's a prove-it year, but it's also fair to say he has been kind of hampered when it comes to having a chance to show that stuff. Do you think Lamar's near the top of the list of guys who are doing the most with the least? Who are the guys in the league that you think kind of they make up for a lot of deficiencies around them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Lamar is the top of the list just because of what they did last year with all the injuries. And it wasn't just offense, right? He lost his top 3 running backs.
Right.
And then on defense, they lost their top 2 corners with Humphrey and Peters going down. And then Ronnie Stanley went down on the offensive line in the first game, which put Villanueva in a tough spot. But for Lamar, he does more with less, and he does the most for his team. And it's just by way of his playing style and also the way they call the games. Other guy would probably be Aaron Rodgers. And this year, he's definitely going to have to do that. I know you got A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones there at running back, but at the wide receiver position, they just don't have a lot of proven guys. I like Christian Watson, the rookie, but I think Rodgers is going to have to do more with less, at least early on, until we know what Allen Lazard and Amari Rodgers and Randall Cobb, what are they going to contribute to that offense? The rest of the guys in the league, I mean, you look at the top guys, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, they all have prolific weapons. Mm-hmm. None of them are out there like, man, I don't have a number 1 guy to throw to.
Right.
You know? Right. So they've all got guys and weapons. And I think we're seeing that more. In the older days, 10, 15 years ago, you felt like the quarterback really had to be the one that just raised the level of lesser guys around him. Right. And I think NFL executives now are looking at it like, you know what? We got a top guy, but we're going to put top guys around him as well and make his job easier. That's why Brady left New England. He went to Tampa, had Mike Evans, you got Chris Godwin. He knew he was going to have weapons around him to help him elongate his career so he didn't have to keep carrying the team every single week.
Yeah, I felt like a lot of people missed the point there. I don't know that it soured to the point where he had to leave. I think he was just like, I can't win here. You know, I got beat by Ryan Tannehill, no shade, because I love Ryan and everything, but I got beat by Ryan Tannehill in the rain at home. You know, so there's a point where people got to look out for themselves. And what do you make of the Kyler thing? I mean, like, I guess I say the Kyler thing, the elephant in the room is it just feels like towards the end of a season, he might slump a little bit. He might get fatigued. You've dealt with injuries. You've run the football a lot. He runs the football. Like, he's got a great arm. You had a cannon too. What do you think it is when it comes to wear and tear with quarterbacks? What's tired on a quarterback week 11, week 12? Do you think that's what's going on with Kyler?
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be part of it. You know, you've seen later in the year, Kyler starts to break down with his body.
Yeah. You
know, not just his play, like he'll pull a hamstring or you know, ankle will go or something like that. And I think he's similar to Lamar in the sense that they don't run Kyler as much as Baltimore runs Lamar because no one runs their quarterback like Baltimore runs Lamar. But for whatever reason, not just Kyler, but the whole Cardinals team just falls off the cliff near the end of the year.
Yeah.
Now, DeAndre Hopkins being out definitely hurt them. But I think the Kyler situation broadly speaking, like contract wise, the Cardinals have no option. They got to pay.
Right.
Because no matter how you feel about him and how he played in the last game you saw him in, you've heard a lot of narratives about that. And the last time you saw him was bad. So why would you pay him now? They don't have a better option.
Right.
If he doesn't play, they're screwed. So they kind of need him to play and they got to kind of fall into that and pay him the money that he wants. But in order for Kyler to take that next step and be that quarterback in the playoffs that he can truly be, he just has to improve his decision making. And I don't think that's talked about enough. Kyler, you know, he turns the ball over, not at an alarming rate, but if you look at his stats throughout the games, decision-making is a problem for him later in the year. He's not throwing for 4 or 5 touchdowns a game. He's throwing for 1 touchdown and a pick or 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. And he's got to improve that so that he's not putting the ball in harm's way. And then I don't think it's talked about enough that he's actually like a real gunslinger.
He really is, yeah.
He has a gunslinger's mentality. Yeah. He thinks he can get every throw, and he's willing to make those throws. So until you are Brett Favre, right, and you win a Super Bowl and you prove that you can manage that and keep both teams in the game but go win the big one, he's got to cut back on those turnovers a little bit.
What do you think the difference is late in the year when you're having a really good year? Those couple of years you threw for like 3,000 plus yards. Like, what do you think's happening later in the year when a player gets? Is a quarterback getting schemed up? I mean, like, I sit in the meetings too, but I don't know what changes. Is the speed of the game increase as the season goes on? The coverages change? What do you think yields struggle like that late in the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just hit every one of the points on the head there. Teams do start to scheme you up, and I'm not a believer in, the scheme got so good that they just eliminated this player's success. That doesn't happen. It's more so of when you see a different coverage and being able to adjust. When I was in Washington and Baltimore, I saw coverages for myself and Lamar that aren't real coverages, right? They were game plan week to week coverages that you never saw on tape. And it was that way because your quarterback is now a threat. So it's not 10 on 11, it's 11 on 11.
Right.
So teams would scheme you differently. So, but I honestly think for the Cardinals, it was more so that they did not have DeAndre Hopkins there as a security blanket, an outlet, that guy in the boundary that you just say, forget the play, I'm going to throw it to this guy. They didn't have that in the playoffs and late in the year when he was out. And I think that truly hurt him. But Kyler, I just think I don't know what's going on in the building or attitude-wise or this or that, so I don't speak on that stuff. But what I watch on tape, he just looks a little bit more tentative late in the year. Almost as if all those mistakes early in the season make him a little gun-shy. And I just need him to be that same confident guy. Like he has a little bit of an arrogant confidence to him. Yeah. And all the great QBs have that.
Baseball. He's got that baseball gene, dude. Baseball guys got a different swag.
Yes, they do. Like, I'm the best. I know I'm the best.
You gotta be. You gotta hit that tiny ball a bunch of times, dude. It's like, come on. I saw a guy for Tennessee was throwing 106 the other day, dude. Baseball players are low-key insane. So Kyler, I get it. And also you made a great point. Like, hey, when you were talking about training camp, you guys as guys who are actually running the fucking ball too are tired. Your hamstring gets tired. He's dealing with fatigue that other quarterbacks don't have to deal with when you're part of the running offense. And you said it. I mean, like, there's a scheme there too. And he's not the one calling the plays and he's not the one drawing up the concepts. Maybe he needs to be more involved in that because it does seem like Cliff gets schemed up in the second half of the season too. So I'm not putting everything on Kyler, but it is interesting, when you look at it. The last quarterback situation here with Baker, man, I'm starting to feel bad for him. I'm feeling bad for him because I've been there as a player when you play hurt and you don't get the thing out of it that you imagine you're supposed to get out of it.
Yep.
Right? And you've been there.
Yep.
How are you able to look at the Baker situation? Does it hit close to home at all? I mean, obviously you handle yourself differently in sound bites.
Correct.
But as a football player, was there any part of you watching him this year like, damn, don't do it, dude?
Yeah, I mean, any guy that I see playing now, when we know they're hurt, it's documented that they're hurt, I always just err on the side of trying to tell them, don't do it, right? It's not a good thing. What you put on tape when you're hurt, they don't care, right? They don't watch that tape and say, oh, he was hurt here. No. It's just whatever the tape is and whatever you put out there, that's who you are. So when I played hurt in 2012 for Washington, I did that because I was trying to be there for my teammates. Mm-hmm. And you know how that is. Like, you build this brotherhood and this camaraderie and you're like, I can run through a wall for these guys. Yeah. I don't care if my arm's falling off. I'm going to give them everything I have. And for me back then, it was morphed and turned into a negative thing. And I'm just like, you feel like you watch Phillip Rivers when he played with the torn ACL and you see how that was received. You're like, okay, well, I'm a gladiator too. I can do this as well. So I'm going out there playing with no LCL and ended up tearing my ACL. And I did that. And I'm like, I just gave my whole body for the team. And you felt like you didn't get that reciprocated, at least in the narratives that were talked about. So when I watched Baker, I'm like, man, this guy the year before led them to the playoffs and won a playoff game. So now he's coming out there and he's playing, for his team, for his guys. And the first thing you do in the offseason is just throw him to the side. And I think that's a big reason why Kyler does not want to play without a new deal. He's taken the Cardinals to the playoffs the past couple of years. Obviously, they haven't had success, but they went there. And now he's like, well, I need to get paid because I'm not going to get Baker. Yeah. And as you look at this Baker situation, the Browns created a mess for themselves, man. Not only did they give $230 million guaranteed to Deshaun Watson, they blew up their whole organization for a guy with massive off the field issues. Right. And no matter how you really feel about Baker and like you said, the sound bites that have come out and what he said, he was never a distraction truly on the field. Right. So I just think I do feel bad for Baker because of that whole situation. And I don't think it was necessarily needed. I think the Browns could have waited. Other teams could have waited for the Deshaun Watson thing to develop and show what it was going to be. before they make this move. And now Baker's, obviously his career in Cleveland is just ruined. It's over.
Well, here, I got a loophole for you. In some maybe more likely scenario than you think, Deshaun doesn't play football this year.
Right.
Okay,
right.
Baker's still under contract. You can't get a trade done. You decide not to cut him. I'm not a GM, so I don't know what the money situation is there. But like, let's say you're Baker and they need you to spot start or start a stretch of 6 to 8 games. 8 games, I think, sounds about right. I mean, not 16, 17 games sounds right to me, but 8 games is what's been floated. Let's say Baker has to start 8 games for Cleveland. If you're Baker, are you seeing the value in that? Because I would, even though I'd hate every minute of it, you also have a chance to re-ingratiate yourself to a city that loved you for a second, you know, and then you actually get your best opportunity to audition for another starting job, because I don't know that he's going to have a great opportunity in the future. What would you do if you were Baker and you had to run out of the tunnel again in a Cleveland uniform?
Yeah, I've said this earlier in the offseason. I think Baker, he should be there right now. I know that he was excused and the team honestly wants nothing to do with him. So I don't know if that's even an option for him to be there. But I think it's more likely that Baker plays for the Browns again if Deshaun doesn't play at all this year.
Right.
I think that's more likely. If it's a 6 to 8 game time frame, they'll just play Jacoby Brissett and move on from Baker. And whether they win those games or lose those games, they're honestly not going to care. They're just going to try to be competitive, lean on their defense in the running game until Deshaun comes back.
Right.
But if Deshaun's suspended for the entire season, I mean, if I'm Baker Mayfield, I'm there. I'm in that building, and I'm going to go out and use this year to prove to them why they should have never went and got Deshaun Watson. Now, that's my mindset. I'm a competitor. You know, I don't know what Baker's thinking. I know that he was a walk-on when he first went to college, so I know he's got that competitive fire to him. You see him, you know, planting flags in the middle of the field in college and doing that whole deal. So I think he should be open to that possibility if Deshaun Watson isn't going to play at all this year, because Baker knows that offense.
Yeah.
Where's he going to have more success? Going back to Cleveland or going to a new team and not having an offseason to work with that offense and with those players? The best case scenario for Baker is for Deshaun to get suspended for the entire year so he can step back in there and kind of reestablish himself. And that's going to put the Browns in a whole nother situation.
Dude, that would be the first take stuff would be insane. I think there's competitive spirit and there's a thin line between like being ultra competitive and also being like just too prideful. We're all prideful. Yes, like we don't like being told we're not the guy, because you have to think like you're the guy to especially play y'all's position, dude. Was it ever hard for you, like mentally, like from a mental standpoint? I mean, not just on the field, but I mean mental. I'm not talking mental health. I'm not trying to hit you with a heavy-handed, hey, were you depressed or anything? I'm saying like, is it fucking too much sometimes to balance those expectations and like manage your ego, because you have to have an ego to be the number one guy. Like they only play one quarterback, you know, like there's a thin line between believing in yourself too much and you know, so did you ever have trouble riding that kind of balance in that?
Yeah, I would say that most of my trouble came when I wasn't playing.
Yeah.
Because you're so used to being the guy. And I look at it like retired players, like we both know this, like we've got buddies who played in the league and like they're out of the league and they don't really know what to do and who they are and how to operate and manage that. Well, at the quarterback position, because only one guy plays, starting quarterback is the hardest position in football to play. Backup quarterback is literally the hardest position in football to be in. Right. Because you have to be ready at all times, no matter what's going on, but you get no reps. Everything is geared towards the starter. It's not geared towards you. But when you get your opportunity, you have to step in and go get the job done. So I had more of those issues when you talk about like how you view yourself when I was in Baltimore and my last year in Washington, because you got to be a great teammate. You got to be a pro. You got to be active in that meeting room. And I focused on that to try to help get me through the pain of being on the sideline and not being able to go out and truly impact the game the only way that we as players know how, and that's playing. So that's where I had the issues and the difficulty, because you always have to feel like you're the guy. You always have to feel like I can get this done or you can't play. Yeah. And you know that. Once you lose that competitive edge, you're done. It's over with. Yeah. So I just tried to make sure I didn't do that and just focused all my energy on how can I help the starter? And by that, I'm also helping myself to get prepared to go play.
Fuck, dude, it was hard at the end of my career. I mean, like, especially for you and me being top picks, like high picks. You know, like, it's in your DNA. We had expectations that other people didn't. Right? So then to temper that in your own head as you take on different roles, and people look at you like, why is he so hell-bent on, like, just be happy. Like, just be happy where you are. You're in the NFL, you're getting 24 snaps a game, or you're backing up Lamar Jackson, or like, it's not going to be like it always was. And that's a tough thing mentally as veterans age, especially if you were expected a lot early in your career. I remember I had a D-line coach that was like, Chris, you're not a top 5 pick right now. Like, you're 33 years old. Like, relax. Give yourself a fucking break. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do sometimes if you've been where you and I have been. I haven't been where you've been, but it's tough late in your career.
Yeah, it's 100% tough. And I agree with you. Like, coaches, they come to you like, yo, why are you so, like, hyped up, ready to go? You want reps. It's not that you complain. You're not complaining about reps, but you're like, yo, man, like, I need to get ready for this. So I need all of these reps. But as you know, coaches are more focused on the next guy. Hey, Chris. Hey, Rob. You're 33. Rob, you're 30 years old. Why do I need to get you this rep in Skelly? I'm going to give it to the fourth quarterback who's on the practice squad. And you're looking at him like, I need to practice, bro.
Dude.
I need to practice. I got to go out there and be ready to go if something happens to LJ. And I had that battle, and I'm like, you know, at the end of the day, you're never going to win that battle.
Well, you're not going to win that. You're not going to win the battle. And then also, like, the silver lining in that, because one of my co-hosts here, his name is Nate Collins, and he played for a while. He was my college teammate. He played in Chicago and stuff. And we were talking about OTAs, and remember the Bears got shut down last week?
Yes.
And we were talking about how we used to celebrate if something like that happened. But he goes, I don't know, Chris, you were a vet, and, like, you used to get all these reps. Us young guys who are undrafted, we need those reps. And it almost is like, when you get older in your career, you know how the other half was living. Like, when you were young, you should be out there trying to get all your reps. And I was. But I had reason to not be pressed. And then late in your career, you're pressed like those young guys, the undrafted guys. And you're also, they know what your ceiling is. So, yeah, they're going to try the guy who they don't know what the ceiling is yet. So it's tough getting old in the NFL. What do you think? This is a question that I kind of wondered, because you probably have to deal with a lot of people assuming shit. I assumed shit about you at one point. What do you think is the biggest misunderstanding about RG3?
Right.
Like your career or who you are? Like, what do you think people misunderstand the most about you?
Yeah, you know, I've gotten that question before, and I always feel like it's not really my responsibility to, like, go out there and try to defend myself or defend my career against any type of narratives. I've kind of taken the approach to that, like, the people who know me, they know who I really am. The people who have been in those buildings with me, they know how hard I work. They know how much I dedicated myself to the game and how much I love the game. So I don't really worry about the misconceptions. I just know that when I step into a building and when you meet me and I get a chance to talk to you, that's who I am. Mm-hmm. Whatever people may have heard here or there is all, you know, hearsay, and most of that stuff is taken down by what I've done, by my own actions. So I don't ever try to approach it in a way where I'm like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to destroy this narrative. And that's like my thought process towards that is like, should be for everybody. Never fall into a narrative that you know you're not. Right. Mm-hmm. If someone calls you something or says this thing about you or your work ethic or how you view the world, and you know that's not who you are, then don't fall into that. Right. Never accept that as who you are, and you'll be fine. Because you know this, we're public figures. We're in the public eye. We play football at the highest level. We're opening up ourselves to criticism.
Always.
That's just the name of the business. And it's how you attack that criticism or how you handle that criticism that truly shows who you are. And I've tried, you know, at the end of the day, Jay Gruden, when I was in Washington, didn't say great things about me. Right. But in my exit meeting in 2016, when I left, he shook my hand, looked me in my face and said, I respect the way you handled everything, despite it not going the way that you wanted to go. And especially because of the things that he had said about me. Right. To me, that was the biggest vote of confidence. Right. The biggest compliment he could have gave me was hey, I know I said some bad stuff about you and I didn't really treat you the right way, but I respect the way that you handled it because you handled it as a pro.
Of course, I would rather. Was that some sort of an apology?
some sort of an apology, but of course I wouldn't have wanted that to happen. But at the end of the day, that's the only way you can do it. So when I have those face-to-face meetings and those interactions, that's who I am. Anything else that's said negative, I just leave that stuff alone and move on with my life.
Are you ever surprised at how dysfunctional, as stones get turned over in Washington? Are you ever surprised? Like, obviously you don't know the depths of everything because I don't think people understand us players. We're not like upstairs. We're downstairs. But like, are you ever shocked?
I can't say I'm shocked. I'm more disappointed.
Yeah.
For the players, because I feel like everything that happens in Washington, and it has happened over the last I've been gone from Washington for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that's happened has nothing to do with the players. Nothing to do with the players. You talk about Jack Del Rio and his comments, like comparing treason to the protests for George Floyd.
The dust up.
Right, the dust up comment. It's like, first of all, he's not the only person that feels that way.
Obviously, that's why we are where we are. But yeah,
he voiced it, right?
Yeah.
He voiced that opinion. Yeah. But now it becomes a distraction.
Yeah,
it becomes a distraction for the players. And I was talking about this before. It's like, yeah, you can frame it however you want, but the bottom line is Jack Del Rio made a statement that makes it seem like, definitely seem like, or definitely be that he does not have the backs of the players who are from the Black community.
Right.
That's just however you want to look at it. That's what he said. Now, if you're Jonathan Allen, you're Daron Payne, right? You're Chase Young. And I know those guys came out and supported their coach, but I thought they did that because they were professionals.
Yeah.
Now, what are they supposed to do when it's the fourth quarter in game 6 of the season and their ankle is just destroyed? Are they giving that extra effort?
Am I shooting this thing out for Jack Del Rio?
Are they giving this? Yeah. Are they giving their extra effort for Jack Del Rio?
Yeah.
No, they're not giving that extra effort for Jack Del Rio. They'll give it for their family, their own sense of pride, the guy next to him. But now he's just made it harder for them to go do their job without distraction. So that's where I look at it and I'm like, I feel bad for the players because it's not anything that they've done that's causing those distractions. So every time they step in the building, it's like, man, these guys can't catch a break.
The biggest irony in that whole thing, of course, for me was that if you go back and look at Jack Del Rio's comments on Kaepernick, that was a distraction that was no good for the league and that, and the third. And me, I'm a white guy, so, it infuriates me, but I can't imagine. I'm kind of like, if there's a distraction because I'm standing on principle, I stood up for saying Cap should be able to say what he needs to say. Jack should be able to say what he needs to say, but there's going to be blowback, bro. There's going to be blowback. So don't look around incredulously when most of your team looks at you differently and then maybe even you get fined. He's probably lucky that he didn't get worse because the last guy that was a distraction, and we just talked about him, has not played a football game since. So,
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just remember when I was in Baltimore and George Floyd thing went down.
Yeah.
And the meetings that we had town hall meetings with the whole organization there, players sharing their stories, talking about all these different things and how it impacted their lives and how they needed the team. So when you say, hey, I'm a white guy, I was infuriated by what he said and what's gone on, but I'm more than sure it makes you more upset. I'm glad that you're infuriated. I'm glad that you're upset because we need guys like you to be the voice and step up and talk about these difficult conversations. But at the end of the day, like you said, Jack, he's just creating more distractions. And as a player, it's like, man, I know there's guys we all work with that we don't like, right? We don't like them. We don't like their view on life, but we still go to work and we don't let them get in the way of us doing our job.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be so much better if the guy that's calling the plays for you, you actually have a great relationship with them?
Yeah.
And that little barrier isn't there.
Yeah.
Well, it's there now and he can't take it back.
And the hard part about a position coach or especially a coordinator is that person, affects people's playing time and that sort of thing. Yep. So depending on how outspoken you are in the wake of it, and this was a big sticking point for me, after something like this, you get a bunch of people who are well-intentioned, but they're in, maybe Chase Young's mentions, like, you need to say something, like you're on trial now and you need to fight my proxy war for on Jack Del Rio. That guy he's got a job to do. He's got a family to feed. Yes, guys speak out. I've spoken out like pretty heavy-handedly, but I also signed up for it and was like, I know the risks of talking. Not everybody, I feel like, has to address Jack Del Rio after the fact. That's me, because some guys are dependent on, that check, and they can't see their snaps dwindle and that sort of thing. So it's a really fucked up situation you put guys in. I agree.
Yeah. Like you said, it's definitely a situation where guys aren't trying to do stuff that's going to affect their money.
Yeah.
And as you said, like we all have freedom of speech. Jack Del Rio can say what he wants. I can say what I want. You can say what you want. But none of us are free of the consequences of what we say.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So,
exactly.
So your point, you hit it right on the head. And I would never tell a guy that he needs to speak out just because I feel like he should.
Yeah.
If it's going to affect his money. So I was not surprised when those guys came out and said, that's my coach, that's my guy. He apologized. We believe him. What else are they supposed to say?
What are they supposed to say? I mean, and then also, like, this, like in the locker room, I think some people assume that we don't have a bunch of people that think way different than us. Like, there's a ton of people, like, and also, where in America right now does most of the workforce agree with their boss? Because it seems like the higher up you go on the corporate ladder, you probably don't agree with that person. If you think like me or RG3. Anyways, we've gone too long on Jack Del Rio. I want to ask you this question. Yeah. I want to ask you this question. Do you ever fantasize that you played somewhere else out the gate? I'm not saying, because I've done it and I loved where I played, even though we lost a fuck ton. But, it really is hard on young players when the team's bad, and it's hard on you when you had to deal with what you had to deal with. Who were the other teams picking around Washington? We were one, I feel like.
Yes.
You could have been around. But what other teams?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first team would be Indy. Yeah. And I think recently Indy came out and had said that if Andrew wouldn't have been there, they would have been comfortable with taking me at that second pick. But that didn't happen. I thought the way that Indy supported Andrew was over the top. Now, they didn't protect him in the pocket with the offensive line, but they did support him with weapons and stuff like that. So I always thought, like, man, if I had gone to Indy, my career would have went differently, mostly because I would have been with a more stable franchise. For me, the dream team would have been the Denver Broncos. So when I was going through college,
our producer's a big Broncos fan. Cowboy Reed's back there pumping his fist, imagining.
I was a Broncos fan growing up. And the only reason I didn't grow up in Denver, I grew up in Texas. But when I was playing football initially, the Broncos were really, really good. Yeah, John Elway, Terrell Davis, Shannon Sharp, Rod Smith, Ed McCaffrey, Tom Nalen was a center. Now, if you know the center.
You know the center.
You were a fan.
Yeah, you were a fan,
I was
dude.
a fan of the Broncos, and I'm sitting there as we're going through the Heisman year at Baylor, and the Broncos weren't doing very well early in the season. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, man, they're saying I'm climbing the draft boards. Like, I got a chance to get drafted by my team. And then Tim Tebow happened. So Tim Tebow comes in, starts winning games. They go to the playoffs. He throws a touchdown to Demaryius Thomas, right, to beat the Steelers. And I'm like, golly, man, I had an opportunity to go to the team of my dreams, and Tim Tebow ruined it.
Tim Tebow. Y'all need to bring that. You need to do another commercial at that house, you and Tim.
There you go.
And then you're like... That's good stuff.
That was my dream team. And then the other team that was serious about me was Philly. Philly was serious. Andy Reid wanted to bring me in. They interviewed me at the combine. He said, listen, you never know what could happen. We could trade up. You could fall in the draft to us. And if you're there, we're going to take you. And I also thought that would have been a good situation for me just because of Andy Reid's expertise, and he's a quarterback whisperer, all that stuff. I was really looking forward to that. But I'm not going to lie. When I got drafted to Washington, it was a dream situation for me also because my favorite team, and that was my favorite coach.
Yeah.
So Mike Shanahan was my favorite coach. He was a dream come true. Quickly turned into a nightmare. But at the end of the day, I was, that was heartbreaking, especially when you're a young guy and you don't understand the business, right? You tell me this, like when we go in and you got 90 guys on the roster that first year, and you befriend the guy in the room with you, and then 6 months later that guy's gone.
Oh yeah.
He's not playing football anymore for the rest of his life, and you don't get to see him anymore. Like, as a player early on in my career, that really hurt me, because you go from college where you have all these guys and you grow together 4 or 5 years. You get to the pros, you know this, guys are in and out. Your roster changes so fast throughout the year. You might have a guy that's in the room the first 6 weeks, he's gone after that. And that was a real reality check for me. Like, wow, okay, you know, I'm creating these relationships, and then boom, guys gone out of here. That was tough.
Especially when you're on a bad team, when you're drafted high, like that team is going to have a ton of turnover, dude.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, like we could play a game and try to recognize all the guys we play with, even in a short stint in Washington or 8 years in St. Louis for me. Hey, I want to talk to you about track and field, man. Just two fast guys talking here. Did you do anything? Yeah. You had to call track and field the other day?
Yeah, so I didn't have to call.
No, you're excited. No, I'm saying, like, this is tough, though. You're like a football guy. You're a track and field guy, too. But to talk about it's probably challenging, or no? Because there's not a play-by-play element.
Exactly. Track and field is a very nuanced sport. It's very hard to talk about unless you're involved in it on the daily basis, like the different techniques and everything. But a couple months ago, I requested from ESPN to be able to call the NCAA track and field championships. And they looked at me like, why? Why do you want to call this track meet?
Yeah.
And, you know, at the end of the day, and we can get into this discussion if you want to, I do think that track and field athletes are the greatest athletes in the world.
Ooh.
If you gave me Usain Bolt for a year, I could turn him into a top level receiver. But I can't take even Tyreek Hill or DK Metcalf. I can't take them and in a year make them the fastest sprinter in the world. I can't do that. So I think that there's certain nuances to the sport that make track athletes the greatest in the world. And I wanted to give back to the track and field world by calling those championships. And I can tell you what, the reception that I got after the meet was just incredible. Dan O'Brien, who's an Olympic champion in decathlon, and Laura Overton and Dwight Stones, who's a multiple-time world record holder in the high jump. They were on the broadcast with me. Or should I say I was on the broadcast with them.
Right.
And they were beyond gracious in giving me time to speak, because that's their environment. So the reception from the track and field world has been phenomenal. And I was very, very happy that I was able to do that.
That's incredible. First off, like, really cool, because, you know, like you're doing a good job on the football media side, but then to like be a dual sport guy, that's pretty dope. And then on top of that, yeah, it's a difficult sport to talk about. I don't know who the best athlete in the world is, and my brain is doing a 100-meter dash trying to think about it as you were just talking. So excuse me if I miss something, but I'm like, I don't know, man. Is it sumo wrestlers? I'm like in here, just every corner of my brain is working. So why don't more Devin Allens happen? This is the kid from Oregon, right? And now my Eagles snagged this guy. He's fast as shit. Why don't we just do that more, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's this common misconception that track and field athletes are quote unquote soft. But if you really look throughout the league, some of the greatest athletes in the league were dual sport guys coming out. Some of them ran track also in college. Tyreek Hill was a prolific sprinter in high school, 20-point guy in the 200. Ezekiel Elliott was a state champion hurdler.
Yeah.
Right. So like there's Jalen Ramsey was a All-American long jump at Florida State. So these things do happen. They're just not talked about as often. But with Devin Allen, he was a great football player at Oregon.
Yeah.
He just had a couple knee injuries that kind of made him make the decision to transition just to track. And as you see, like when you run 1284, 0.04 off the world record in the hurdles while you're going through OTAs 4 days out of the week, and he's training both track and football. I mean, the guy is phenomenal. Everyone keeps hitting me up and saying, can he catch? I'm like, just go watch his college tape, guys. Right. The guy can catch. He's a really good football player for the University of Oregon. And I think we don't see it more often because track and field is so hard. Trenton Holiday, I don't know if you remember that name, but he was a prolific punt returner for the Broncos at one point and the Texans. He was a All-American sprinter at LSU, right? But you wouldn't know about that because track's not talked about as much.
Right.
But these things do happen. And Devin Allen is making a transition to football, and for his pocketbook and his family, it's a very good one. Because track doesn't make as much money as football players do. But I think that's more so what it is. Are you going to, like Marvin Bracey's a really high level sprinter, 9'9" guy in the 100, and he played in I think it might have been the USFL or something like that as a punt returner.
Right.
And he quickly decided no longer to play football after he got popped on a punt return.
Yeah.
But I think that's why you don't see it happen more often with track and football, because it's such a hard sport. Track and field is to be at the top. So you don't want to divert your attention.
Yeah, you got no time.
Else.
Yeah, you got no time. So like, you're not going to get the best track athletes that the world knows about, but you can still get some really great athletes that like, hey, I got nothing to do after college. I would just get discus guys, dude.
Oh my goodness!
Come on, I'd have a whole team of discus guys. RG3. I'd have a bunch of shot putters. We'd be throwing all your fast guys around, dude. Give me an NFL guy that you think that has no track background that you're like, this is my guy. That's my last question for you. Give me the next. If I wanted to make somebody a track and field star, and so like Aaron Donald could probably throw a shot put 300 yards.
Yeah, it's like there's a guy, Ryan Krauser. I just looked him up. He's the best thrower in the world. He's 6'7", 320 pounds, right? That's a left tackle, okay? But he's a shot putter. Now, it would be easier for me to make him an offensive lineman, bring him and put him at guard or tackle, than to have Aaron Donald throw the shot put.
Right.
It's just it's so much technique, and I'm sure Aaron Donald might have done shot put when he was growing up. Mm-hmm. But if I could take one guy, I'm gonna take the easy guy, and that's Tyreek Hill, because I know he has the experience running track and field. I would take him and say, all right, let's train you for 2 years, and then we're going to run you at the Olympics in 2024. And I think he could make the Olympic team. I don't know if he would be the fastest guy in the world, but I do think he can make the U.S. Olympic team. And that's big praise, because the U.S. Olympic team is crazy good with Christian Coleman, Fred Curley, Marvin Bracey. I mean, Noah Lyles. They got all these great runners who are running 9.8, 9.9 in the 100. But I think I could get Tyreek Hill there if I train.
Didn't we just have somebody famous running track? Not to say track guys aren't famous, but didn't we have somebody just moonlight as a track guy?
DK Metcalf.
Metcalf did it.
DK Metcalf last offseason.
And did track people respect that?
Yes, they did.
Track Twitter is fucking ruthless. Track Twitter is one of the like, don't step over there. Like, listen, like track Twitter's not real big, but if you step on track Twitter, you're gonna know about it. It's like a landmine, dude.
Trust, like, even for myself, when we called the meet, I thought the producer did a great job of like introducing me to the audience.
Yes.
Because people who don't know,
they're gonna be mad.
Like, they'd be mad, like, why is this football player calling the track meet? You don't ever see track athletes calling football games.
Yes.
So they did a really good job introducing me, like what I did in high school, what I did in college, how I ran pro at the Olympic trials in 2008. But even with that introduction, there were still haters for the first hour of the broadcast. They're like, get this guy off the broadcast. But eventually we won him over. Yeah. Right. And it turned great. So I agree with you. Track Twitter is wild. And here's what I'll say about DK. They appreciated DK coming out and trying. Yeah. DK trained for, I think, 3 or 4 months for that run, and he ran 10.3. Yeah. Now I'm not going to go without saying this. DK got last in that race.
Yeah.
So for the track athletes, it was vindication to say, this ain't easy. Okay. Stop acting like it's easy, but we respect you for actually coming on the track and running that event. Now I'll tell you, DK Metcalf, based off what he ran, if he trained for an entire year, he'd be way more competitive on a track. Not than on a football field. He's a great football player, but he'd be really competitive on a track. But I think track Twitter and the track community respected what DK did, because he put his money where his mouth was and actually got on the track and ran. And I think they respected him for that, but also felt good that he got last.
Yeah, it's like fucking J. Cole going to play professional basketball. It's like, for you to have the balls to do this and actually like compete at it and bust your ass, that's awesome. So, and the guys that beat DK Metcalf are heroes in the track community, I'm sure. Because nobody wanted DK to win that fucking race. Nobody, they never would have been able to run again. So listen to the full podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast streaming platforms. Wherever you want to get the podcast, you can get the podcast. Pretty simple. New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Podcasts get pretty wild. This is real tame.